There's a quiet hour in every person's life, a moment when the world stops pretending. When the mask falls. When the illusions of control, certainty, and effortless success shatter under the weight of real experience. It's in that moment, usually wrapped in the chaos of failure, that a voice begins to whisper. Not the voice of defeat, but the voice of awakening. If you listen closely, you'll hear it say, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." And how you respond here will define everything. Every towering figure history reveres, every builder of empires, every sculptor of the modern world, stood face to face with the storm of failure. Napoleon Hill understood this better than most. Long before the pages of Think and Grow Rich became gospel for the ambitious, Hill himself was torn down by rejection, poverty, and obscurity. But within that pain, he discovered a philosophy that now echoes across generations. Every adversity, every failure, every heartbreak carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. This is not optimism. This is not positive thinking for the sake of comfort. This is strategy. This is transformation. This is the mind's rebirth through fire. Because failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the catalyst. It is the forge in which clarity is hammered, in which weak beliefs are burned away, and the truth about who you are is revealed. You were not built to avoid hardship. You were built to grow through it. But the problem is this: most people flinch at the first strike. They let one misstep redefine their identity. They take a single no and tattoo it onto their soul. They collapse under the weight of temporary defeat, never realizing it was only a lesson in disguise. But not you. Not anymore. Let the world crumble around your plans. Let the deal fall through. Let the relationship end. Let them doubt you. Let them walk away. Because now, you understand. Failure is data. It's feedback from life. It's the clearest instruction you will ever receive. It's life saying, not this path. Not this time. Not yet. But pay attention. Adjust. Grow. And it all starts with mindset. The battlefield of destiny is won in the trenches of thought. Before you lift a finger, before you write a word, before you chase a dream, it is your inner world that must be conquered. Most walk through life as mental paupers, begging for scraps of confidence, seeking validation like thirsty men crawling through a desert of opinions. They're imprisoned by fear, not of failure itself, but of what failure says about them. But here's the truth Hill discovered in the depths of his trials: thoughts are things. And the most powerful weapon you will ever hold is your belief. Belief that you are not a product of circumstance. Belief that you are not defined by your past. Belief that you can become something more. Not through fantasy, but through decision, clarity, and relentless action. Burn this into your mind: your thoughts today are architects of your future. Every dominant idea you allow to plant roots in your psyche will bear fruit, whether it's fruit of abundance or fruit of despair. So you must guard your mind like a fortress. When failure strikes, and it will, don't let the voice of doubt be the only one you hear. Speak louder. Stand taller. And remember, Edison failed 10,000 times before the bulb stayed lit. 10,000 times. And when asked how it felt to fail that many times, he simply said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not arrogance. That's mastery of thought. That's vision so clear it turns detours into maps. Because clarity isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. It's knowing what you're building, even if the bricks keep falling. It's holding the blueprint in your mind when no one else sees it. And that kind of clarity only comes to those willing to look into the eyes of failure and ask, "What are you trying to teach me?" Carnegie saw it. So did Ford. Lincoln, too. They didn't rise because they were immune to setbacks. They rose because they stopped taking failure personally. They started taking it professionally. They treated every defeat like a mentor. And you must do the same. When you fail, and you will, if you're aiming high enough, pause. Reflect. Analyze. Not with shame, but with curiosity. Ask, what belief led me here? What action did I take, or not take? Where was I unclear, unprepared, misaligned? This is how you turn failure into wisdom. Not by running. Not by numbing. Not by pretending it didn't happen. But by owning every piece of it. Digging into the pain. Extracting the lesson. And returning to the world, not weaker, not smaller, not more cautious, but sharper. Clearer. Hungrier. Because you are not here to live in retreat. You are here to expand. And failure is simply the pressure life applies to test whether you're ready to grow. So the next time life knocks you flat, smile, not because it feels good, but because you know what's coming next: growth, insight, power, alignment. And if you keep your mind locked on that truth, Hill's truth, failure will stop being the thing you fear. It will become the thing you respect. The moment you begin to respect failure, not as an enemy, but as an ally in disguise, you shift from survival to creation. The fear that once froze you begins to dissolve, because you realize it was never about being perfect. It was about being prepared. Prepared to learn. Prepared to evolve. Prepared to build, even as the ground shakes beneath your feet. And this is where belief deepens into vision. Because belief is the seed, but vision is the root. It anchors you. It holds you steady through the storm. Without vision, you drift. You get caught in the tide of opinions, distractions, quick dopamine hits. But with vision, you move mountains. Napoleon Hill once said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." But understand this, belief without vision is blind faith. And blind faith without direction is just noise in the wind. To transform failure into fuel, you need a vision that burns brighter than your excuses. You need to see the version of yourself that exists on the other side of discipline. The one who rose from the ashes of 1,000 rejections. The one who didn't quit when it was hard. The one who embraced the long road because they understood, every great destiny requires great resistance. Do you think Carnegie found steel in comfort? Do you think Disney discovered imagination by following the rules? Do you think Abraham Lincoln wrote his name into the pages of history by avoiding conflict, by fearing failure? No. They saw what others couldn't. And they were willing to bleed for it. Not once. Not twice. Every time it was required. Because vision isn't just dreaming, it's demanding. It calls you forward. It stretches you. It won't let you hide behind yesterday's effort. Vision whispers, "Not yet. There's more in you. Keep going." But here's the trap, without purpose, even vision fades. Without purpose, success becomes empty. The mansion becomes a cage. The applause becomes static. And you start asking, why am I doing any of this? That's why purpose is the soul of this journey. It is the thread that ties your struggles to your mission. Purpose gives failure its meaning. It transforms pain from a punishment into a teacher. It tells you, this matters. You matter. And this mountain in front of you, it's here for a reason. Your purpose is not found in pleasure. It's not found in comfort. It's not even found in the goal. Your purpose is found in the process. In the early mornings when no one is watching. In the relentless pursuit when the world is silent. In the moment you fall and decide to rise again, not for applause, but because something inside you refuses to surrender. That's purpose. And when you're anchored in it, you become dangerous. Because nothing can stop a person who knows why they're suffering. The world can strip them of everything, money, status, reputation, but they keep moving. Because the mission is internal. Because the calling is louder than the noise. And that brings us to the great divider, discipline. The bridge between failure and greatness is not motivation. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is discipline. Discipline is the hammer that shapes vision into reality. It's what keeps you showing up when the feelings fade. It's what turns inspiration into execution. Every master you admire, every leader, every innovator, every world changer, was a disciple of discipline. Not because they loved routine, but because they understood that consistency beats intensity. That showing up daily, even in small ways, compounds into legacy. Discipline is what separated Ford from every other mechanic. It's what kept Hill riding through years of obscurity. It's what made Lincoln rise from political failure after political failure until the White House opened its doors. And the truth is, you already know what you need to do. You've known it for a long time. The late nights scrolling, the mornings wasted, the tasks postponed, you've felt the cost. Discipline is the decision to stop negotiating with mediocrity. It's the moment you draw a line in the sand and say, this is who I am now. This is how I move. This is how I rise. No more waiting for the perfect moment. No more seeking permission. No more lying to yourself about tomorrow. Because every time you delay, you train your mind to doubt. But every time you act, no matter how small, you build a track record of belief. And belief compounds. Like interest on effort, it builds daily until it becomes certainty, a force so strong, no failure can shake it. But action is the proof. You cannot think your way to transformation. You must move your way there. You must do. Fall. Recalibrate. Rise again. And when you do, you begin to feel something sacred. Something almost otherworldly. Momentum. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that trends online. But the quiet, undeniable kind that lives in your bones. The kind that turns vision into velocity. The kind that lets you walk into rooms like you belong, because you know what you've survived. The kind that takes failure and turns it into foundation. And it all started when you refused to let failure define you, and instead, you let it refine you. Let it continue. Let it forge. Let it sculpt. Because the masterpiece is not found in perfection. It's born in the fire. There is something sacred in the fire. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It consumes what is no longer needed, burns the illusions, and exposes the truth. And in that truth, if you're brave enough to face it, you will find the raw materials of greatness. Every excuse turned to ash. Every lie you told yourself about why you couldn't. Gone. What remains is you, the real you. The version that's been buried under fear, doubt, and disappointment. Failure was never your enemy. It was the invitation. But most never accept it. Most turn back. Most run from the heat. They hide behind blame, behind the illusion of bad luck, or worse, they cling to the myth that some people were just born for success. Hill dismantled that myth. He studied the icons of industry, the kings of invention, the titans of thought, and he found no magic. No predestined greatness. Just persistence. Just clarity. Just relentless learning. Hill didn't write a book of fantasies. He wrote a blueprint. He mapped the inner game. He decoded the mindset of mastery. And at its core was a truth most avoid: failure is the tuition for greatness. You don't pay in dollars. You pay in time. In sweat. In patience. In nights of doubt. In the lonely hours when the world doesn't clap, and the rewards feel distant. But if you keep paying, keep learning, keep adapting, eventually, life pays you. This is where we separate the wanderers from the warriors. The ones who react from the ones who respond. Because failure isn't fatal, but it is feedback. And your response is everything. Will you crumble? Or will you construct? You need adaptability. The willingness to pivot, not abandon. To shift your methods, not your mission. Because the dream doesn't change, but the route might. Think of Henry Ford. He didn't invent the automobile. What he did was reimagine how the world moved. He failed over and over. Multiple companies collapsed beneath him. But he didn't shrink. He adapted. He looked at the chaos and asked, "What can I learn here?" And in that question, the Model T was born. Same road Edison walked. Not in a straight line, but in spirals. Trial after trial. Dead end after dead end. But with every misfire, he adjusted his lens. He refined his approach. And in the end, he didn't just create a light bulb. He lit the future. That's the pattern. Fail, adapt, rise. And that requires resilience. Not the surface kind, the deep kind. The kind that doesn't just survive failure, but integrates it. That doesn't just bounce back, but bounces forward. Resilience is not about never falling. It's about what you build after the fall. It's using the collapse as a platform. It's taking the broken pieces of your last mistake and using them to lay the foundation for something greater. You become unshakable, not because life stops testing you, but because you stop fearing the test. Because now you know, the storm is not here to destroy you. It's here to develop you. Lincoln faced political defeat after defeat. 8 election losses. A failed business. A nervous breakdown. But he didn't interpret those failures as dead ends. He saw them as part of the path. By the time he stood to lead a divided nation, he wasn't just wise, he was forged. And that's why he could hold steady when the entire country was at war with itself. He wasn't just a man of vision. He was a man of resilience. And so must you be. But resilience isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in silence. In the moments you want to quit but don't. In the mornings you rise, aching but determined. In the nights you go to bed with doubt in your chest but fire in your soul. That's where champions are born, not in victory, but in the spaces between failure and faith. And that faith? It must be fed. Daily. With learning. Because no matter how many times you rise, if you don't evolve, you'll repeat the same fall. Learning is your edge. It's what turns failure into progress. It's what separates the successful from the stagnant. The most powerful people on this planet never stopped learning. Carnegie read every book he could get his hands on. Hill devoured knowledge from the mouths of the world's wealthiest. Disney consumed every new technology and storytelling technique until imagination itself became his playground. And you? You have access to more knowledge in a single day than they had in a decade. But it's not about how much you consume, it's about how deeply you apply. Every failure gives you a new question to answer. Why didn't it work? What did I miss? How do I improve? What can I refine? Ask. Study. Apply. And repeat. Because when learning becomes your obsession, success becomes your side effect. You no longer fear failure. You seek it, because it's your next lesson. You no longer avoid discomfort, you chase it, because it's where growth lives. And one day, without realizing it, you'll look back and see what you've become. Not in a single moment, but in thousands of silent decisions. You'll see the distance between who you were and who you chose to be. And you'll understand the truth Hill left behind for all of us. Success is not an accident. It is a system. A mindset. A way of life. And every failure you face is part of the initiation. So stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this preparing me for? Because life isn't punishing you, it's positioning you. Every failure, every closed door, every rejection is a recalibration of your trajectory. It's not the universe saying, no, it's the universe saying, not this way. There's something better, if you're willing to keep going. But this only works if you trust the process. Not blindly. Not naively. But with the understanding that everything you go through becomes a part of what you're becoming. That nothing is wasted. That pain is never pointless. Even your lowest moments are sacred, if you use them. And that's the part most miss. Transformation isn't passive. It doesn't happen just because you fail. It happens when you respond with fire, when you convert adversity into wisdom, and when you refuse to let defeat be your final definition. It happens through choice. The choice to stop running. The choice to dig into the lesson. The choice to rise, again and again, until rising becomes your identity. Because there's power in repetition. Not the kind that numbs you, but the kind that refines you. Every time you get up, you are sculpting your character. Every time you keep moving, you are reinforcing your belief. Every time you take one more step when your mind says stop, you're laying bricks on the path to mastery. And mastery doesn't happen in lightning strikes. It happens in the grind, the invisible grind. The part no one sees. The quiet hours. The painful rejections. The lonely decisions that no one applauds. It's there, in the silence, where greatness is built. You don't become unstoppable by avoiding failure. You become unstoppable by facing it, absorbing it, and becoming better because of it. That's the code Hill cracked. That's the pattern the legends followed. And now, it's your turn. Start treating failure like a masterclass. Like a custom-built curriculum written in the ink of your own decisions. Let it humble you, but never diminish you. Let it challenge you, but never consume you. When something doesn't work, don't quit. Don't collapse. Don't question your worth. Instead, investigate it. Break it down. Learn from it. And try again, with sharper aim and stronger resolve. Because this is how the great ones rise. Not with perfection, but with persistence married to perspective. They understand that the world doesn't reward the first draft, it rewards the final version forged by dozens of drafts, countless rejections, endless refinements. You are not here to dabble. You are not here to flirt with greatness. You are here to embody it. And that requires a new level of devotion. A new standard. A new rhythm that isn't based on how you feel, but on who you're becoming. Because when you show up day after day, failure after failure, learning as you go, a shift begins to happen. Your identity upgrades. You go from someone who tries to someone who executes. From someone who wants success to someone who commands it, through action, discipline, and alignment. You become immune to petty distractions. You stop chasing validation. You no longer panic when life doesn't go as planned, because you trust yourself to adapt, to overcome, to lead. And that trust, that's the foundation of everything. You build it every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every time you wake up early when you'd rather sleep. Every time you write the page, make the call, take the risk, even when fear is screaming. Those moments are bricks. Stack them daily, and soon you'll have a fortress no storm can shake. But let's be clear. This doesn't mean the pain disappears. It means you rise through it. You lead yourself through it. You become the kind of person who no longer waits for external motivation, but moves from internal fire. That's what failure is offering you. Not shame. Not loss. Power. But you have to claim it. You have to own your failures so fully, so honestly, that they no longer haunt you, they fuel you. You have to be willing to say, yes, I failed. But I learned. I adapted. I rose. And now I am more than I was yesterday. Say that enough times, and eventually, you'll realize. Failure didn't break you. It built you. Because that's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Failure is the sculptor. Not your friend. Not your cheerleader. Not your safety net. It is the relentless hand that carves away your excuses, shatters your illusions, and forces you to confront the only thing that was ever holding you back, yourself. And once you stop resisting that, once you embrace it, something incredible begins to happen. You start moving differently, thinking differently. You stop needing things to be easy. You stop needing the world to agree. You start needing only one thing, to grow. Because now you understand, the goal is not comfort. The goal is not applause. The goal is evolution. And evolution doesn't happen in comfort zones, it happens in the crucible. In the pressure. In the moments where everything feels like it's falling apart, but in reality, you are finally falling into alignment. The version of you who can handle the future you dream about. That version doesn't show up by accident. They are built, painstakingly, through repetition, through failure, through the choice to keep going. So when you feel like quitting, ask yourself this. Are you tired because it's time to stop? Or because you are right on the edge of the next level? Because most people quit right before the breakthrough. They stop digging inches from the gold. They walk away when the pressure builds, not realizing that pressure is the final test. Hill saw this again and again in the lives of the greats. He wrote, "Most great people have attained their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure." Let that hit. Just one more step. One more push. One more moment of discipline. That's often all it takes to turn a breakdown into a breakthrough. But you don't get that breakthrough unless you're willing to stay in the fire. Unless you're willing to go through it, not around it. And that's why you must rewire your relationship with adversity. You must learn to expect it. Not in a negative, paranoid way, but with respect. Because adversity is not a glitch in the process. It is the process. It's the force that chisels you into someone capable of sustaining success. Because success without growth is fragile. It cracks. It crumbles. But success built on resilience, that's unshakable. So what do? You build habits that outlast your emotions. You build a structure so strong that even when the storm hits, and it will, you stay standing. Discipline becomes your anchor. Not the kind that restricts you. The kind that sets you free. Because once you don't have to negotiate with yourself every day, once your actions are automatic and aligned with your goals, you stop wasting time on indecision. You stop burning energy on doubt. You just move. And when you move like that, consistently, clearly, with purpose, momentum begins to carry you. You no longer need motivation. You no longer chase inspiration. You become the kind of person who inspires others. But none of that starts with success. It starts with failure. It starts with falling and choosing not to stay down. It starts with embarrassment and showing your face anyway. It starts with rejection and saying, "Thank you, that just redirected me to something better." Because here's what most never realize. Failure is feedback. Feedback is clarity. Clarity is power. And power, when aligned with purpose, becomes unstoppable momentum. The pain you're carrying, that's your raw material. The regret you feel, that's fuel waiting to be ignited. The past you wish you could rewrite, you can't rewrite it. But you can redeem it. You can turn every scar into strength. You can turn every misstep into mastery. You can take the pages of your lowest chapters and use them to write the blueprint for your rise. Because no one else gets to decide what your failures mean. Not your critics. Not your past. Not even your former self. You decide. And when you choose to see your failures not as definitions, but as directions. Not as labels, but as lessons. You begin to unlock the very thing Napoleon Hill discovered through his own brutal, beautiful, relentless journey. Success is not about luck. It's about laws. And one of the greatest laws is this. Those who learn from failure rise higher than those who fear it. So rise. Let your failures become your faculty. Let your pain become your power. Let your detours become your direction. Because you are not here to avoid the fire. You are here to become something through it. And every moment you choose growth over comfort. Every time you turn a setback into strategy. You are walking the exact path that built legends. And the next chapter, that's yours to write. So write it with conviction. Not timidly. Not cautiously. Not with a pencil that can be erased. Write it like your life depends on it, because in every meaningful way, it does. Write it with the ink of your own blood, sweat, and persistence. Etch every page with the fire of your discipline, the steel of your resilience, and the clarity of your vision. Because this chapter, the one you're in right now, this is the turning point. Not because it feels good. Not because things are easy. But because you're finally awake. You're no longer running from your past, you're using it as a weapon. You're no longer shackled by failure, you're standing on it. And now, the world feels different, doesn't it? It hasn't changed, but you have. You see challenges, and you lean in. You hear rejection, and you translate it into redirection. You stumble, and instead of asking, "Why me?" you ask, "What is this refining?" That shift is everything. Because most people live their entire lives asleep, walking quietly toward the grave, ruled by fear, shaped by failure, and too numb to question it. But you've stepped into consciousness. You've remembered that you are not your mistakes. You are your responses. And that means the power has always been in your hands. It always was. Hill didn't give it to you. Carnegie didn't hand it to you. Ford, Edison, Disney, none of them gave you permission. They simply modeled what happens when someone refuses to let failure dictate their destiny. They built empires, not because they had fewer failures than you, but because they had more. And they learned faster. That's the final truth. The golden key that unlocks everything. Speed of failure equals speed of learning. And speed of learning equals speed of success. If you want to accelerate your life, accelerate your learning cycle. That means failing faster. Risking sooner. Moving boldly, not recklessly, but intentionally, with the understanding that every move teaches you something. The only people who lose are the ones who stop learning. The only people who fall behind are the ones who wait for perfect conditions. But those who lean in, those who collect data from every loss, recalibrate, and launch again, they rise. Always. Because success, real success, isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You rise, fall, rise again. Each loop takes you higher, if you're paying attention. Each failure becomes a launch pad, if you let it. So start using your failure like a master uses their tools. Study it. Strip it for parts. Extract the blueprint. Rebuild. And do it again. And again. And again, until you become the kind of person who no longer needs to be told what's possible, because you're living the proof. Because make no mistake, you are the proof. You are the living, breathing example that the path from failure to fortune is real. Not because you avoided the pain, but because you absorbed it, learned from it, and transmuted it into power. And now you carry a truth that changes everything. You were never meant to be average. You were never meant to play it safe. You were never meant to die with your potential still trapped inside you. You were born to lead, to build, to shape the world with your story. But you can only do that if you stop apologizing for your past. You can only do that if you stop hiding your failures and start honoring them. Because those moments, those rock-bottom nights, those gut-wrenching losses, those mistakes that almost broke you, they are sacred. They are part of your becoming. And one day, soon, you'll look back, not with shame, but with gratitude. You'll realize those failures were not curses. They were catalysts. They didn't weaken you, they revealed you. And in that revelation, you became dangerous. Dangerous to limitation. Dangerous to mediocrity. Dangerous to every false belief that ever tried to tell you you weren't enough. You became a force. And the world bows, not to your name, not to your titles, but to your resolve. Because resolve cannot be faked. It is earned. In the fire. In the silence. In the failure. So let the world throw what it will. Let the plans fall through. Let the critics circle. Let the storms come. You've been in the fire before. And now you know how to rise from it. Stronger. Smarter. Sharper. Not in spite of failure, but because of it. So go. Stand tall. Step forward. And finish what you started. Your legacy does not begin when you win. It begins every time you refuse to quit. Every time you get back up, you send a message. Not just to the world, but to yourself. A message that says, I will not fold. I will not be defined by this. I am the one who decides how this story ends. That message echoes. It reverberates through your actions, your choices, your discipline. And over time, it becomes your identity. Not because you said it once, but because you proved it daily. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs real ones. Resilient ones. People who've tasted failure, looked it in the eye, and decided to build anyway. You want to change your life? Start there. Start where it hurts. Start where you failed. Start where the shame lives. Start where the weight is heaviest. Because that's where the treasure is buried. That's where the real work begins, not in your strengths, but in the places you've been afraid to go. Not in the praise, but in the process. Not in the applause, but in the aftermath of defeat. The world teaches you to chase validation, to avoid pain, to seek comfort. But greatness has never lived in comfort. It's been dug from the mines of effort. Forged in the steel mills of self-mastery. Crafted by people who knew that without failure, there is no edge. Let the others chase safety. You are here to become. And becoming requires pain. It demands discomfort. It demands the death of the old you, again and again, until all that remains is purpose wrapped in action. Because action, that's the final piece. None of this matters if you don't move. All the insight, all the philosophy, all the perspective, useless if you don't step forward. The universe doesn't reward intentions. It rewards execution. It rewards the one who takes the lesson from failure, wipes the blood from their face, and goes back into the fight with more focus than ever before. It rewards the one who doesn't wait for certainty, who doesn't beg for signs. Because they know the sign is the burning inside that says, there's more. There's more in me. And there is more in you. More resilience. More clarity. More power. More potential. But it will only reveal itself when you move. Not when you think. Not when you wish. When you act. And yes, it will hurt. You will fail again. You will fall again. But each fall will be higher than the last. Each failure, more precise. Each mistake, more valuable. Until you've built an unshakable confidence that no win could ever give you. Because true confidence doesn't come from success. It comes from surviving the failure and choosing to try again. It comes from knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you have the power to adapt, to learn, to overcome. It comes from the realization that you are not the outcome. You are the engine. The source. The cause. The creator. And when that sinks in, when that belief locks into place, there's nothing you can't become. Because you've finally understood what Hill, and Carnegie, and every titan of growth came to understand. Failure is not the end of the road. It is the road. A road paved with grit. Lined with lessons. Fueled by vision. driven by purpose, and walked by those few who decide, I will not stop until the world sees what I already know I am. That's you now. Not by accident. Not by bloodline. By decision. So let the fire keep burning. Let failure keep coming. Let the world test your resolve. Because you don't fear failure anymore. You walk with it. You learn from it. You rise through it. And when others retreat, you advance. When others hide, you lead. When others quit, you build. Because now you know. Failure isn't the thing to avoid. It's the greatest teacher you'll ever have. And you've graduated. Not with a trophy, but with something far more powerful. The unshakable, undeniable, unstoppable truth. That you were forged for this. So now you walk differently. There's a weight in your step, not the weight of burden, but of presence. Because once you've met failure face to face, once you've stood in its shadow and refused to bow, something changes in you forever. You stop chasing easy wins. You stop begging for comfort. You start commanding your path. Not because life owes you anything, but because you owe it to yourself to finish what you were born to begin. And no, you won't always know the next step. The path won't always be lit. But now you move not because it's certain. You move because it's necessary. Because motion itself is your declaration. I will not be defined by fear. I will not be ruled by the past. I will not surrender my future to the opinions of those who've never walked this fire. You've earned this mindset. Through the late nights, the early mornings, the bruised egos, the shattered plans. You earned the right to trust yourself. To look at your past failures, not with regret, but with reverence. Because every one of them gave you a piece of yourself you didn't have before. Discipline. Focus. Awareness. Wisdom. You didn't read those in a book, you bled for them. You built them in silence, while others slept. You built them when no one clapped. You built them in the middle of uncertainty, anxiety, doubt. And you kept building anyway. That's not motivation. That's identity. And that identity, that's your power. Not the titles. Not the followers. Not the praise. You are powerful because you've endured. You've seen who you are when it gets hard. You've been tested, bent, pushed, nearly broken. And still, here you are. Not just standing, ascending. Let that settle in your soul. Because too many forget what they've survived. They forget what they've overcome. And they carry their failure like a curse, when it's actually a crown. A reminder that they refuse to fold. That's what separates the few from the many. Not talent. Not timing. Not even resources. But the decision to extract wisdom from pain instead of excuses. The greats all made that decision. Over and over again. Lincoln, mocked, doubted, dismissed, until he became the conscience of a nation. Disney, fired for lack of imagination, until he reshaped imagination itself. Hill, broke, rejected, alone, until his words became the gospel of self-determination. They weren't special. They were devoted. They weren't fearless. They were faithful to their vision, even when fear surrounded them. And now you stand in that same tradition. You are not a follower of greatness. You are its next expression. But only if you keep going. Only if you remember that failure is not something to get past. It's something to carry forward. To wear as armor. To wield as insight. To respect, because it forged your strength. And when the next failure comes, and it will come, you won't crumble. You'll lean into it. You'll welcome it like a blacksmith welcomes the flame. Not because you enjoy the heat, but because you know what it's making you into. So rise, not with arrogance, but with clarity. with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to be told they're capable, because they know. You know that your mind is sharper than it was. Your heart is stronger than it was. Your focus is clearer than it's ever been. Not in spite of failure. Because of it. And when they ask you one day, how did you do it? How did you keep going? You'll smile, not with pride, but with peace. And you'll say, I failed. But I never left the fire empty-handed. I didn't run, I rebuilt. And every time life knocked me down, I came back stronger, smarter, more certain of who I was. Because that's what it means to transform failure into power. That's what it means to live with Hill's insight. And now, you don't just know it. You are it. So now, you walk like it. You speak with the gravity of someone who's earned their voice, not through ease, but through effort. You carry yourself not with arrogance, but with the calm force of a soul that has met resistance and refused to disappear. This isn't the kind of power that shouts. It doesn't have to. Because true power, the kind that endures, is silent until necessary. It doesn't need to be loud, because it knows. And you know now. You know what failure really is. It's not an ending. It's an unveiling. It's the moment the world strips away who you thought you were, and reveals who you're capable of becoming. You were never the setbacks. You were never the missed chances. You were never the doubts or the delays. You were always this. This fire. This focus. This unrelenting presence. But it took failure to see it. To feel it. To own it. That's why the path isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to test you. To check if your hunger is real. To see if your reasons are strong enough. To find out whether you're in it for applause or for impact. Because the ones who are here for impact, they don't flinch when it gets hard. They expect the pressure. They welcome the test. Because they know. Every time you're tested, you're taught. Every failure is a class in clarity. Every mistake is a mirror. And every collapse holds the blueprint for the next level. That's what Hill taught us. That failure is not something to escape. It's something to mine. To dig through. To extract gold from. To use, not as a reason to stop, but as the reason you can't stop. That's why you rise. Because you felt the weight. And now you've earned the wings. But let this truth settle deep into your bones. This isn't a one-time breakthrough. It's not a single transformation. It's a lifestyle. Because failure never leaves for good. And neither should your discipline. Neither should your clarity. Neither should your devotion to the craft of becoming. Every day is another chance to step back into the fire. Not to suffer, but to sharpen. To sculpt. To stretch. To evolve. You are not here to arrive. You are here to ascend. And there is no finish line for those who are called to create legacy. You are becoming a standard, not just for yourself, but for everyone watching you. For those who've forgotten their strength. For those who've been told they're too broken, too late, too far behind. You stand as living proof that none of that matters. That failure doesn't erase destiny, it activates it. But only for those willing to listen. To lean in. To learn. To lead themselves before they ever try to lead others. So the next time you stumble, don't hide. Stand taller. Dig deeper. And remember who you're becoming. Not someone who got lucky. Not someone who avoided the fire. But someone who mastered it. Because here is the final truth. Greatness does not go to the most talented. It goes to the most tested. To the ones who learned how to fail with intention. To the ones who stopped seeing pain as punishment and started using it as preparation. To the ones who didn't just read Hill's words, but lived them. And now, you are the insight. You are the lesson. You are the story that proves failure doesn't destroy dreams, it disciplines them. So when they ask where your strength comes from, when they wonder how you became so steady, so focused, so unbreakable, you'll tell them the truth. I met failure, and I stayed. I studied the lesson. I paid the price. I built in the dark. And I never once forgot who I was becoming. And that is how you rise. That is how you lead. That is how you transform failure into greatness. Because in the end, it was never about avoiding the fall, it was about who you chose to become when you were lying flat on the floor, gasping for air, staring up at a ceiling that looked 1,000 miles away. That moment. That brutal, breathless moment. That's where identity is forged. Not when you win. Not when the world cheers. But when no one is watching, and you have every excuse to quit. And you don't. When your hands are shaking. When your heart is racing. When your mind is screaming, enough. And you still say, one more try. One more breath. One more step. That is how the foundation is laid. That is how the storm becomes your sanctuary. That is how failure becomes not your story's end, but its greatest turning point. And from that moment forward, life is never the same. Because now, you know where real power comes from. Not from avoiding the battle, but from becoming the warrior who can't be broken by it. You don't fear failure anymore, because you felt it, faced it, and forged something stronger because of it. And now, when you walk into a room, you walk with the presence of someone who has nothing to prove. Because everything has already been proven in the dark. In the unseen. In the silence. In the nights where you had to become your own fire. You are no longer fueled by what people think. You are fueled by what you've survived. What you've built. What you've earned. And that kind of energy, it cannot be bought. It cannot be taught in a classroom. It cannot be faked. It can only be forged. That is the essence of Hill's insight. Not theory. Not fluff. Not wishful thinking. But raw truth. That every failure contains within it the blueprint for something greater. If you dare to look close enough. If you're willing to mine the rubble for revelation. And the ones who do that, they become unshakable. Because they've realized that life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're willing to work for. What you're willing to be refined by. What you're willing to be tested for. And the test? It's not whether you fall. It's how you respond when you do. Because when your vision is greater than your fear, when your purpose is louder than your pain, when your discipline is stronger than your doubt, there is nothing that can stop you. That is the root. That is the lesson. That is the unchangeable law that Hill uncovered and passed forward. That inside every failure is the invitation to transcend your former self. To shed the smallness. To bury the excuses. To kill off the part of you that was only ever built to survive. And unleash the part of you that was born to lead. Born to impact. Born to create. Born to build a legacy that outlives your name. Not in comfort, but in fire. So now, you walk into every obstacle with that knowing. You embrace the challenge. You seek the edge. Because you understand what most never will. Success doesn't come in spite of failure. It arrives because of it. So fail faster. Learn deeper. Build stronger. Lead louder. And when they ask how you became unstoppable, don't point to your talent. Don't list your wins. Don't show them your trophies. Show them your scars. And tell them, this is where I was made. In the fall. In the fire. In the failure. That's where I became everything I was always meant to be. And that is the truth no one wants to say out loud. Because it's not glamorous. It's not easy to digest. It won't get stitched on a throw pillow or slapped across a social media feed in cursive font. But it's the truth that builds legacies. The truth that Carnegie knew when he started with nothing and built an empire from steel. The truth that Ford understood when he failed not once, not twice, but 5 times before creating the machine that changed the world. The truth that Edison embraced when he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." The truth that Napoleon Hill captured when he said that every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Not some adversity. Every adversity. Every single failure. If, and only if, you have the courage to look deeper. To dig harder. To stay longer. You must outlast the pain. Outlast the judgment. Outlast your own inner doubt screaming, "Maybe this isn't for me." Because that voice will come. It comes for everyone who dares to grow. It came for Lincoln when he lost 8 elections. It came for Oprah when she was told she was unfit for TV. It came for Disney when he was told he lacked imagination. But they didn't obey that voice. They didn't retreat into safety. They didn't shrink to fit the world's small opinions. They expanded to match the scale of their vision. And now, you must do the same. This is your call to arms. Not to fight the world, but to master yourself. To confront the parts of you that have been hiding behind failure, behind fear, behind the illusion of, "I'm not ready." You're ready now. Not because you've figured it all out, but because you've finally stopped waiting to feel perfect before you move. That's the moment everything shifts. When you act not from certainty, but from conviction. When you stop chasing the absence of fear and instead walk with fear on your shoulder, because your purpose is louder than your panic. That's how movements begin. That's how empires are born. Not from the hands of perfect people, but from imperfect souls who refuse to stay small. Who looked at failure and said, "You're not here to stop me. You're here to shape me." That's who you are now. A person who no longer breaks in the face of setbacks, but builds with them, learns from them, leverages them. Because failure is not your enemy, it's your engine. The more it hits, the more momentum you gather. The more you fall, the more data you collect. And if you're willing to keep moving, through the bruises, the bankruptcies, the betrayals, the breakdowns, then nothing can stop you. Because here's the greatest transformation of all. You are no longer afraid to lose. Because you finally understand. You never really lose. Not if you're learning. Not if you're adjusting. Not if you're still breathing and willing to rise again. You don't lose when you fail. You lose when you refuse to turn the failure into a lesson. You lose when you believe the lie that one mistake defines your worth. You lose when you quit before the miracle. When you bury your gifts because the journey got hard. But you're past that now. You've seen too much. You've felt what it's like to keep going when everything says stop. You've witnessed the quiet strength that comes when you don't give up on yourself. And now, you carry something the world can't take from you. Not money. Not fame. Not luck. But wisdom. The hard-earned, soul-forged wisdom of someone who knows. That rock bottom isn't where you end. It's where you wake up. It's where your real voice starts to rise. Where the noise falls away. And where your soul finally says, "Now, let's begin." And that's exactly what this moment is. Not an ending. Not a delay. Not a detour. It's a beginning. A deeper one. A truer one. The beginning that only reveals itself when everything else has been stripped away. When the layers of who you were trying to be have fallen. And only the real you is left standing. No more masks. No more pretending. No more hoping someone will come save you. You don't need saving. You need direction. You need ownership. You need to rise from within, not as someone chasing a dream, but as someone becoming it. And that means this. You stop waiting for certainty. You stop asking for signs. You stop letting the opinions of those who've never dared shape the voice of someone who is meant to lead. You decide. You choose. You command the future through the actions you take now. Not next year. Not when you feel ready. Not when everything aligns. But right now, in the mess, in the noise, in the middle of all the unknowns. Because this is when it counts most. Anyone can take action when the skies are clear. But the ones who create the future, they build when the storm is still raging. They move while bleeding. They lead while shaking. That's who you are becoming. Because you've stopped asking, what if I fail? And started declaring, what if I never try? You've stopped saying, I don't know how. And started saying, I'll learn. You've stopped defining yourself by the past. And started designing yourself from the future. That future is yours to build. Not with guarantees, but with grit. With the relentless, daily decision to show up and push the stone. Like Sisyphus in the myth, but this time, you're not cursed. You're called. And every push makes you stronger. Every attempt sharpens your character. Every setback chisels your will. And eventually, the stone doesn't roll back. Eventually, you break through. Because consistency beats resistance. Because effort rewrites identity. Because those who refuse to stop eventually arrive. That's the real success story. Not a lottery win. Not overnight fame. But a life built inch by inch, forged in discipline, resurrected from failure, and sculpted by unshakable belief. The kind of belief that Hill wrote about. The belief that burns quietly when the world turns cold. The belief that refuses to die even when all results say, walk away. The belief that says, I will not be average. I will not abandon this calling. I will not stop until my reality reflects the greatness I know I'm carrying. That's who you are now. Not someone hoping for success, but someone becoming the type of person who commands it. And the journey? It's never straight. It's never smooth. But it's always worth it. Because you're not just chasing a dream anymore. You're living the lesson. You're no longer avoiding failure, you're mining it. You're no longer afraid of being knocked down, because you've already gotten back up. And when you rise this time, you're rising with the strength of every fall, the clarity of every misstep, the fire of every closed door. You're rising with purpose, with vision, with a mission not just to succeed, but to serve, to show others what's possible, to be the living example of what happens when someone doesn't just read Hill's insight, but embodies it, breathes it, builds with it, and becomes the message. So walk like it, speak like it, live like it. Let your story become the proof. Let your pain become the power. Let your failure become the foundation that carries you to heights no one saw coming, not even you. Because this is the beginning of something unstoppable. And it starts now. Not with applause. Not with recognition. But with the quiet, powerful choice to keep going. To never stop building. And to transform every scar into strength. Because the moment you stop hiding your scars and start honoring them, that's when your real story begins. Not the polished version. Not the filtered version. But the raw, uncut, undeniable truth of a person who was broken, but never bowed. A person who fell, but rose wiser. Who struggled, but kept building. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to impact it. And impact doesn't come from perfection, it comes from presence. From standing in front of your life with open hands and saying, I own this. All of it. The wins. The wounds. The wisdom. Because Hill's insight wasn't about avoiding the dark. It was about lighting a fire within it. He didn't write for those who wanted comfort. He wrote for those who wanted change. Radical change. Transformational change. The kind that doesn't just touch your habits, but rebuilds your soul. And that kind of change, it demands truth. It demands discipline. It demands that you stop running from your failures and start using them as the foundation of everything you build. This isn't a mindset shift. It's a life shift. It's the moment you stop being the victim of your story and start becoming the author. You stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself. You stop explaining your past and start creating your future. And you do it with the tools you've earned. The hammer of resilience. The compass of purpose. The blueprint of lessons carved into every loss you thought would end you. Because here's what the world won't tell you. You already have everything you need. Not because you've done it all, but because you've endured enough to begin from a place of unshakable truth. That truth is the bedrock of greatness. And it's not loud. It's not flashy. It's quiet. Still. Rooted. It's the kind of truth that doesn't beg to be seen. Because it shows itself in results. In your habits. In your choices. In the way you walk into each day, not waiting to be motivated, but moving with mission. You've tasted what failure can teach you. Now let that hunger drive you. Don't just get back up. Rise with reason. Rise with the knowing that this journey you're on, it's not just for you. It's for every soul watching you. Every life you'll touch. Every future you'll help rewrite by living proof of what's possible when someone refuses to be defined by defeat. That's legacy. And legacy isn't built in a day. It's built in every day you show up with intention. Every day you choose progress over perfection. Every day you decide that the mission matters more than your mood. That the dream deserves more than your excuses. That your future is worth the discipline your present demands. So, carry your failure not as a burden, but as armor. As memory. As message. Let it harden your will but soften your heart. Let it drive your work but deepen your empathy. Let it sharpen your edge but never dull your soul. Because the more you grow, the more you give, the more you rise, the more you lift others. That's what Hill meant when he said that out of every adversity comes a seed of equal or greater benefit. He wasn't just talking about financial wealth. He was talking about soul wealth. About impact. About legacy. About becoming a person whose presence alone wakes people up to what's possible. That's your job now. Not just to succeed, but to inspire. Not just to build a life, but to become the reason others believe they can build one too. So keep walking. Keep building. Keep rising. With every scar on your back and every lesson in your heart. You are the living embodiment of this truth. Failure does not finish you. It forms you. And you were always meant to be forged in fire.